Hello and welcome everybody to another Solify Industry Chat webinar. I am really glad that you're here today. We are really excited about today's program. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I am Billy Kripe, the Vice President of Global Marketing here at Solify, and I am really honored today to be hosting today's conversation with Joey, Jennifer, and David. Well, today we're stepping back a little bit from industry trend topics and future looking to focus on something that every equipment finance organization really eventually wrestles with, and that is how much of your back office operations should you run yourself versus how much does it make sense to hand off to a partner who does it all day, every day for a living. To explore that, we've brought together two organizations who have lived these questions from both sides. Our featured guest today is JDR Solutions, an Indianapolis-based team that's been providing outsourced portfolio management, customer service, and technology hosting to the equipment finance industry for 25 years. If you've ever wondered what it looks like to hand off your back office operations without losing control of your business, JDR is exactly who you want to hear from. Joining us today from JDR is Joey Eneveldson, the CEO, and Jennifer Schultz, Executive Vice President. Welcome both of you, and thank you for being here. And to ground this discussion in the real world, we're also joined by Dave Anderson, the Chief Operating Officer at Broadleaf Financial Group. Broadleaf provides equipment finance solutions to large corporations across technology, medical, logistics, and construction, and recently went through their own modernization journey of their portfolio management operations by working closely with JDR along the way. Dave, welcome to you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, gang, for those of you who are with us live on this webinar, we do want to invite you to participate in the conversation using your Q&A function right here in GoToWebinar. While we can't see your faces, we can read your questions. So please avail yourself of that Q&A box. As your questions come up, we will work them into the conversation as they become germane to the topics that we discuss. Please do participate there. We want this to be a robust back and forth, certainly between our panelists, but also with you. For those of you who are joining us in the on-demand webinar, thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us and rewatch this broadcast. And if you are interested in engaging with us, there are some downloadable content assets as part of this webinar that you can access. And throughout this webinar, we'll be giving you the URLs and email addresses and phone numbers that you can use to engage with Joey and Jennifer or David from Broadleaf. Well, let's go ahead and get this conversation started, gang. Joey and Jennifer, would you start by kind of introducing JDR Solutions? And then we'll talk to you, David, a little bit about introducing Broadleaf and really what brought you all together. But ground us in who you are and what you do, Joey.
No, I appreciate it. Appreciate being on the panel today, and great to be with Dave at Broadleaf and everyone here at Solify and Jennifer as well. But just to quickly introduce JDR, we're a third-party service provider, like Billy said, based in Indianapolis. But really, JDR was built around a pretty simple observation. Equipment finance companies are experts at originating and structuring deals. And that's where they add value. That's where they spend their time, their energy. But running the back office that supports the portfolio, servicing, customer service, all the operational plumbing, if you will, that's a completely different skill set, and it's hard. It's expensive. It's hard to staff well, especially at scale. We saw lessors, we saw lenders either over-investing in ops teams that pulled focus from growth, or maybe even under-investing and potentially creating risk. So JDR exists to be the operational partner that lets finance companies simply stay focused on what they do best. So while we handle the service infrastructure behind it. So we always say, you go worry about landing your next deal, we'll handle the rest.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, David, let's turn it over to you. Introduce us to Broadleaf, and we've got a really nice dynamic here with JDR being around for 25. Is it 25 years yet, Joey? Or almost
25 in November, yeah.
25 in November. So coming right on up on that 25-year anniversary. And David, congratulations to Broadleaf. You just hit your 1-year anniversary, I understand. So tell us about how you went from zero to hero.
Yes, we've achieved 1/25th of JDR's time in business. So very, very proud of ourselves. We're a mid-ticket equipment lessor, as you kind of sketched out, with a focus on FMV leasing and real commitment to transparency with customers, particularly around end of term. So a lot of activity when you're an FMV lease lessor. Around end of term, a lot of options for the customer and making sure that they understand and come away feeling that they've been dealt with fairly. So that's our focus and kind of our vision of what we're building. And we've been over the first year here, our journey really in simple terms has been to go from spreadsheets to an implemented instance of hosted ILS in the cloud. So that's been kind of from an operations standpoint, infrastructure standpoint, really the biggest thing that's happened over the first year, most important thing maybe. So the year for us has really served, as we've implemented this as a really core item, and partnered with JDR and figured out our processes with them. It's really served as proof of concept for some principles that we brought to the table. We were very methodical as we started the business, figuring out and coming to consensus around what are our views of how we go about our business, what's core to us, and what are our principles. And I'll talk about some of that a little bit later, but we've completed 2 phases of ILS implementation, the core product plus a couple modules, both phases on time and under budget, which has been really a pleasure. And there's what's the joke about success has a million fathers or whatever. JDR's been really important to that success. Other contributors to that success exist, and obviously the Solify implementation team's been really important to that as well. So we've just had a beautiful partnership throughout the process of getting off the ground. Now a year in, we're really seeing both what it's like to have JDR on our side in helping us with the implementation, but also what it's like to work with them day to day, and very, very happy with that.
Sure. So maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that. You said the 2 magic words for any sort of a project, on time and under budget, but that's looking back. What was it at the outset that made you go, JDR is the team for us as we're spinning this up?
So I had a personal introduction from somebody I knew to Joey, and so I had an opportunity to talk to him and just get to see who is this person, what's it like to talk to him. And right away I could tell there was a good cultural fit. Joey listens every bit as much as he talks. I talk a lot. Joey is a real listener, and so right away I thought, well, this guy is hearing me. So I knew. From the beginning, I had a good feeling of a cultural fit, and plus we had a referral. Somebody I knew had said they're a really great team. So between those 2 things, you kind of have both some validation of others' opinions and then your own sense of what the person is like and what the offering looks like. And you go through the beginning, you're negotiating a SOW, and you get a sense of how these people negotiate, what is important to them. How's their level of flexibility when you're talking about the details of a business engagement, and all of those things went really well. So I had very low apprehension about, is this the right partner? With choosing Solify, I had some previous experience with the company, with with some certain people in the implementation group. I've been, in equipment leasing for a long, long time, and already knew the reputation of the product, reputation of the company. Had seen some of the improvements to the product that had come about in the last, say, 5 years, and so felt very good about the selections we had made.
Sure, sure. Well, that sounds fantastic. Jennifer, I want to bring you into the conversation as well. As you think about the implementation projects and really this first year with Broadleaf and spinning everything up, and thinking about, Dave, what you had mentioned about your methodical approach and a very deliberate approach to identifying how you want to do business and how you want to operate. Were there any challenges or areas of worry at the outset that looking back turned out to be either easily solved or were non-issues? What are those things that you started out kind of maybe wringing your hands or identifying, boy, we got to pay attention to this, and it went either really smoothly or, is just maybe a problem not solved, but dissolved?
Hey, Jennifer, I can take that one. And maybe chime in here if you want. But I think with kind of any project, there's some worry sometimes about, or maybe a fear that there's going to be maybe a bumpy transition, that moving operations to an outside partner means that there's going to be some service hiccups or maybe potential for a rocky stretch for customers. But in practice, we, like you mentioned, we run a structured project, and testing's a big part of that. Dave was part of that as well, but the testing's critical, and the disruptions that people maybe worry about just don't materialize as much as you'd think, as long as you run a structured project and that you make sure testing is forefront there. So, and maybe another fear is that clients will lose responsiveness, that the outside team either won't move as fast as an internal team might. But what we actually typically hear back is the opposite, that because servicing is JDR's focus, response times, turnaround times are often faster than maybe what they have in house. So, Jennifer, I don't know if you'd add anything.
I would add to that too, that JDR's resources have been very fortunate to work with a wide variety of portfolios over the years, each unique with complexities and quirks, but we've been able to overcome quirky challenges by having the right resources and the right partners. It was an absolute dream project to have Solify and Broadleaf with their very methodical and disciplined approach to do the first 2 phases.
Well, that sounds great, and I think that the experience across different types of portfolios, different types of organizations, gives you that breadth of knowledge and confidence. Like, oh yeah, we dealt with something similar over here. Now we can take that same approach, maybe turn it 90 degrees, and now we have our approach in this situation as well. That experience seems like it's a really important competitive advantage for, certainly for JDR, but then who's receiving that, right? It's Broadleaf in this situation, right? You're able to deal with that and take advantage of that broad experience. I'm going to pause the conversation right here and invite you, members of our webinar viewing live audience, to ask your questions using the Q&A panel in the GoToWebinar tool panel there at the bottom of your screen. Please do submit your questions to any of the panelists, or just in general, questions around the project planning process, the implementation process, servicing, or kind of even a stump the chump type of a question. Let's see what Joey and Jennifer and Dave can do with those sorts of questions as well. Well, as we continue on, gang, Joey, I'd love for you to kind of give us maybe a little bit of a deeper overview of when an organization like Broadleaf or anybody else reaches out to JDR, what's on the table? What's in the JDR sweet spot for servicing? What can you take off of an organization's plate to free them up to do what they do best?
Yeah, of course. Great question. So I would say the foundation of our portfolio solutions department, that they are the foundation. That's the team that's handling the servicing of the portfolio. So we're talking about booking deals, booking transactions, billing and invoicing, payment processing, all the contract changes that come along post booking, like asset location changes, asset dispositions, all the way through to termination, all the operational mechanics that keep the book of business running and running accurately. Also part of that team, also part of the process is what we call the post funding process, essentially getting new deals booked, making sure deals are booked correctly, that the end customer's set up right from day one. So I mean, what also is included in portfolio solutions is customer service and collections. The team which owns really the back end relationship over the life of the contract. So we're talking about billing and payment history as needed for the customers, taking payments, like handling account reviews, account reconciliations, and also collections work. So what makes it work is that this isn't a handoff between separate vendors. It's one department. It's one JDR portfolio solutions team, one accountable partner, so nothing's fallen through the cracks, and since from the beginning when the deals originated, so all the way through the life of the contract.
Well, that seems pretty comprehensive. Dave, what's left for you to do?
As Joey indicated, originate deals. We are, as I said, we're very focused on transparency with our customers. So we're doing a lot on the front end regarding onboarding of the customers, and really deeply engaging with them around their needs, their expectations, et cetera. So we really try, when the deal is booked and it's going into sort of an ordinary sort of routine servicing, we are really trying to hand JDR the package with a bow on it, right? So that the very minimal, trying to minimize, I know that they're very capable of dealing with if there are complications, but I'm really focused on trying to minimize those, right? And so folks that are on the team internally here at Broadleaf, that we would normally, if we had not outsourced, would be looking to all this setup, the booking of the deals, making sure that the invoicing is set up correctly, et cetera. They are not spending time on that. Their role is much more to convey clearly and cleanly to JDR what's needed on this deal, and then they can move on and start working on the next deal, right? And I actually, I knew this webinar was coming up, so I had asked that team, what does JDR, mean to you? And I got some responses, and they really were focused on, hey, I can do a good job on bringing this customer on or this contract in, closing it, and then I can confidently just give it to JDR to deal with the sort of nuts and bolts, the practicalities of making sure it's in ILS correctly, and then move on to the next deal. And I think for those that have been doing equipment leasing for a long time, particularly the part of the market we serve, there's a lot of negotiation, a lot of specialization for our customers. And so a lot of the time something will come through and you're asking yourself, how would this get booked? How do we achieve what we've promised this customer, or what we've crafted in terms of our contract with the customer? And what's beautiful is you're able to call and talk to somebody who has the experience at JDR, has sort of seen everything over that 25 years, and then will also be the same people that are actually going to set it up. So when you have the conversation with them, you don't, you can access experts, but then you have the answer, and then you have to explain it. It can get very time consuming. You then have to explain the answer to the people that are going to do the input, the setup, et cetera. But that's the person that helped you figure it out, right? There's like no potential for loss of information because you're still in the same group or people. So it just, it's more efficient, in my opinion.
That's absolutely that's absolutely terrific, especially the way that you're able to keep the knowledge within that core group. So structuring, negotiating, identifying the uniqueness of each individual deal doesn't get lost in 3 degrees of translation or 12 degrees of translation before it's then implemented in the actual system that is there for compliance and daily operations and all of the workflows and all the checks. That makes a lot of sense.
You know that what you figured out is what got done. And I want to circle back to something Joey was saying about responsiveness. I actually teased Jennifer a little bit that I'm like, I am not convinced you have other customers, right? Because they're just extremely available to us. And I know intellectually they have other customers. I want them to have other customers so that they're still there helping us. But they're extremely responsive, and when we call, we can get somebody who's core to providing us with service in Jennifer and some other people within the business, and they engage directly in the question. They're focused on the outcome. I really view them as like real operations people. I'm not sure that makes sense to everybody, but having done ops at leasing companies for a long time, there is sort of a mindset of, okay, first I got to understand what you're trying to get to, then let's figure out what's the process going to be, how can we do it safely, right? Like there's a real emphasis on process controls, authority, making sure that like they understand who's allowed to ask them to do certain things. So I know the title of this event has to do with like, are you nervous about losing control? Or that's kind of implied. They're really oriented sort of natively or naturally. Their outlook includes a focus on process, authority, and appropriate control. So that takes away a lot of that nervousness because they're already sort of there with me, thinking about these issues in the same way that I want them to be thought about.
Sure. So Jennifer and Joey, what's your secret sauce? How do you make your customers, like Broadleaf, like David, feel like they are the only ones who are important, who have, your time, your attention, so that you become an extension of their business, of their operations, rather than a transaction kind of at the back of a line somewhere?
No, I would just touch on what Dave said there. Everything that we do, like every call, every statement, every touch point that we have, it happens under, in this case, Broadleaf's brand. That we're in the background. Their customers don't know JDR exists, and that's very much by design. Again, to the control side of things, clients keep visibility, and our clients keep the visibility, the decision-making authority over policies, the strategy. We're executing within the guardrails that they set for us. So outsourcing the mechanics doesn't mean outsourcing their relationships to their clients or outsourcing all of their judgment calls. Those always stay with Broadleaf. Those stay with our clients. So
I think that's really important. Outsourcing the operations doesn't mean outsourcing the relationships, and that ties back something, Dave, that you said at the very beginning about, why did you pick Broadleaf? Well, there was a relationship. You got introduced, you established and cultivated that relationship, which built trust and confidence to to go forward with them there. And it sounds like that is a cornerstone of the relationship and the operating structure now, as well as you move forward in doing daily business. I think that's really important as we talk about the overall theme of this webinar, which is outsourcing without losing control. And some organizations may be, that they may intellectually know, yeah, it might make sense to outsource some of the back office operations, but there is still that kernel of doubt or concern or worry, anxiety about losing control. So, how directly and specifically maybe what are some examples of ways that either JDR you're helping to alleviate that concern, or Dave, what are some things that you're seeing that maybe you had some anxiety initially, but you want to, if you're talking to somebody else out there who's either starting up or has been in business, give them the confidence. Like, what is it? How do they deal with not losing control?
So for me, it was shaded a little differently, right? Like not like JDR would run off and I don't know, apply cash in a way that I didn't like, or waive something that a customer owes us. Nothing like that. Like really, that would never happen, and I was not really worried about that. I guess what I was concerned about was, we're a startup, right? So we're learning as we go. We've got a lot of energy going into figuring out exactly, we have our principles and we have our idea of how we want to grow our business, how we want to run our business, where we're going. But day to day, we're figuring things out from time to time. How do we, oh, wait, maybe we could improve that a little bit. Or now that we're actually doing business with this customer, I understand the customer needs this, right? Like, oh, I better get that done. My concern was that we would be hard for JDR to deal with, right? That they would be like, well, this is not how our other customers behave. Or we really want to, we expect to take over, a certain quantity of what you do. And I don't like that you're continuing to be involved in it. Or you want to, one area is we're refining sort of the way we deal with invoicing at the beginning of the contract, right? So we've been, for a while we were doing all of the invoicing manually out of something we were creating out of spreadsheets, and then started moving forward with getting those invoices produced exactly the way we wanted out of ILS, and then figuring out, okay, are we going to continue to have some manually created invoices right at the beginning in interest of speed, and also I'm a big believer in let's test again before we give it to JDR to set up. Let's make sure it works exactly right. So let's do it a little more handmade at the beginning, and then give them the absolutely perfect, solved package. And I was worried they would be like, well, that's not going to work, right? Like if you set the system up to start pumping out invoices, that has to happen right from the beginning. Nobody does it this way. Quite the opposite. Like I said before, you can get the expert on the phone who's going to work with you on it, and they're happy to show up, be part of your company meeting and with the affected group and bat around ideas. So my concern proved to be unfounded, right? Like I was worried you're right here, that JDR would say, well, you guys are crazy, basically, and that there'd be resistance to doing things the way we wanted to do, or resistance to change if we said, well, we were doing it like this, and now we want to try that. Quite the opposite. But at the same time, that like operations mind frame of kind of trying to look around the corner and say, well, if you do that, have you considered this potential problem or that potential problem? Or if I'm bringing up the potential problem, my fears, they'll say, well, here's why this will be okay, right? But they're so able to engage in detail around how things will actually work. It's very reassuring.
I'd say I just to add on to that, our resources kind of can see the full picture too. It's if you book a deal this way, how does that have any downstream effect on any other systems you might be connected with, any reporting on how it comes out that way. But yeah, our resources can see the whole picture. So.
I would add to that too. This is something I love about working for JDR is that we can offer such a wide range of services. Our clients are not obligated to commit to any of those services that they don't need.
I think that's really important so that they can create a purpose-built system, structure, operations that fits them and the needs of their clients, rather than being kind of force fit into into a full meal deal when they don't want the French fries, whatever it may be.
Right.
Joey, we've talked a little bit about how JDR connected with Broadleaf as a startup. What other sorts of organizations do well working with JDR?
No, it's a good question. So startups are good. That is our wheelhouse. But other companies, other finance companies that tend to be a good fit, those that are, like I said, getting started or growing, either trying to scale originations and don't want operations to become a bottleneck that it sometimes can be. So maybe it's expanding into new markets, new asset classes, and don't want to build out a whole new back office function to do it. Maybe they just need supplemental, because we can be that fractional support too. It's also we're also a good fit for organizations maybe going through a system transition or migration. They want some experienced hands managing the process, rather than learning it for the first time. Like I mentioned, it's a particularly strong fit for startups like Broadleaf, rather than, again, building ops from scratch. Before you even book your first deal, you can launch with an experienced partner already in place, and you put your focus, your capital, again, towards originations growth from day one. So,
well, that's a really a big incentive for organizations who are, like you said, are growing or thinking about opening up a new line of business there. For those of you who are watching, whether you are with us live or with us on demand, if you look at the materials tab of your GoToWebinar meeting here, you will also see a brochure from JDR that is available for you to review and look at if you want some more information or something to hold on to and look at as you consider what they have to offer. Dave, I want to kind of bring it back to you. You've talked about some of the benefits, the confidence that you were able to achieve and receive by working with JDR as you start up. For an organization that's maybe listening or watching this today who really hasn't considered outsourcing their ops, their portfolio management, where should they really get started? You mentioned you started with a relationship and a personal meeting. You also mentioned at the very beginning that you have a discipline of being very methodical and understanding and documenting kind of what you want to do and how you want to do it.
Yep.
What of those sorts of lessons carry over to an organization who's like, yeah, okay, maybe we should think about this? What should they start with first?
Well, I guess we're and this continues. We're engaged with JDR as a partner, but in my head we're engaged in two different ways at the same time, right? So JDR serves in certain key roles in implementation projects, and JDR serves as an outsourced outsource provider for us for our ongoing operations day to day. So they've done both of those things really effectively. And I think a lot of what we've talked about today has been around, the day-to-day business. But it's also been, can't say which is more important. They're both like super critical. They've been amazing as a partner for an implementation. So as Joey was saying, we're really a sweet spot for us as a startup. I don't know, I'm always curious and nosy. I started immediately thinking, I wonder what it would be like to have JDR with you when you were trying to do a migration, right? Not that I want to do one. Those are really difficult. But it would be very interesting to see what they brought to the table. A huge benefit. Well, let me step back to our discipline. Our discipline is really around being kind of ruthless with ourselves. We keep asking ourselves, are we ready to start whatever project it is that we believe is next for us? So we're committed to this idea of no false starts. And if we smell anything, like get a hint that maybe we aren't as prepared as we think we are, we will go back to square one and ruthlessly interrogate, are we really ready? And we've developed over time a readiness set of metrics where we really sit and say to ourselves, are we really ready? And we've brought JDR into some of those questions. And I think, the big danger with an important project is that you're kidding yourself about how ready you are and about your own capabilities, right? So this sort of ties into outsourcing. If you really know who you are and you know what you're good at and where your strengths are and what the highest value use of your time and skills are, then you can be more honest about what ought to be, where ought you to be looking to outsource or partner, I guess I would almost say more.
Sure.
And think about where do these other folks shine. And, I have no problem admitting when someone else is better at something than I am. That's fine with me. I'm glad they exist. And then really in a focused, hard-nosed way, scope and staff, and I think it's important to realize those are two things, and you got to think about each of them. They're important together, but they each deserve a really high degree of attention. What all are you biting off in terms of your project that's in your immediate, schedule for what you're working on? Is the scope that you've created appropriate? We had a piece of a project that we downscoped because we got into it and really, as we talked and had those kind of very real conversations with ourselves and the others working on the project about this total scope, we as a group were able to say, let's put that aside. That can be, can this project go on without this piece that threatens the other parts, right? So scope, and then staffing. Do you have the right people? You can't, you can, but you shouldn't fool yourself about what the capacity of the people that are working on the different areas. So you really have to define, like, who is taking on, what are the needs of the project from a staffing standpoint? And then do we have the right person in each seat? If you don't, then you aren't ready, right? And your readiness, your analysis of your own readiness should tell you to stop and start again, seeking the right person. So once you have that, right, like once you have the right scope and you've staffed with the right people, and it can be hard to have that discipline at the beginning because you're like, God, I just want to start. Like if we can't start, we'll never get to the end. But you then, once you get started, you can execute really quickly, faster than you would expect, because and without cutting corners. You're not just going fast to go fast. You're going fast because when issues and questions arise, you have the right people and you've matched the people to the project, and you can answer questions quickly and with confidence, and you always have the right group of people ready to have the conversation. So questions always come up, unforeseen things happen. If you have the right people there in the room, that's no problem. You will move right along and move along well, confident, like secure on the path. Mm-hmm. So I'm very passionate about this. I know I kind of spoke at some length, but this is really important to me.
No, I think that is really insightful. The notion of scoping, I think, it comes down to, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you're optimized for that, and or that it's the highest value area where you should be spending your time and your resources, whether those are monetary or time or human, people capacity resources.
Yep.
I think that's really interesting. Joey, let's flip it over to you. When you're talking with organizations and maybe organizations who are thinking about, maybe this is the right time for us. We've got an expansion project. We're entering a new line of business. Maybe we should reach out to Joey and Jennifer. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you both come across that maybe you would want those organizations, those companies to think about before they call you?
No, that's a great question. I would say maybe one of the biggest misconceptions is that, again, giving something up, that it's a downgrade from having operations in house, or that you're, again, losing visibility, losing control the moment you hand it off. In reality, I would say most clients tend to end up with more visibility than they had before, because they're working with the team here at JDR. Again, our entire focus, operational excellence. I would say maybe the other misconception, it's probably around cost. People assume that outsourcing is just about cutting expenses, but for most of our clients, it's a growth decision. They're outsourcing because it lets them scale faster, and again, put their resources. Again, I keep saying it, or toward originations, toward their relationships, instead of the back office.
Jennifer, anything to add on that from the misconceptions that you've had to address in your time with JDR?
Not really. I think JDR is in a unique position to have not only a strong set of very experienced resources, but also nab the next generation of resources that really get it. They are detail oriented. They care about what they do. They love leasing and operations like Dave does. So we're just so lucky to have that balance.
I think that's great. One thing that we hadn't planned on talking about, but you just alluded to it, Jennifer. I just want to get a sense, Joey, Jennifer, and Dave. What do you all think about that next generation of leasing and finance professionals? What's going to bring those folks in, the young people in, who have new ideas and entrepreneurial energy and enthusiasm for this space?
I'll mention real quick. I think the associations have been doing a pretty good job of that. The ELFA and NEFA, and then I would also add the CLFP designation, the certification. That's something that I went out and thought it was a big deal, and we make that a big deal at JDR, so that we're making well-rounded people here at JDR that can see the full picture of the equipment finance industry. Maybe we're just doing operations, but if you know how this all gets started, from landing a deal and sales, all the way to talk about marketing, all the way through what JDR does on the back end. If you can see the full picture, that certification is going to get you there and make you better at all of this. So,
Dave, what about you? What do you think how do we get that infectious enthusiasm that we see from you, especially, translated out to the rest of the world here?
I guess in my personal life, I've tried to convince my children that being a lessor is a great life. They have no interest, so I've gotten nowhere with that. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I'm heartened to hear about the efforts being made in the industry to bring in some people. I've heard about some efforts that, over the years just have have met so many people who have joked around about I never knew equipment leasing existed, and I certainly never planned to be involved in it, right? It's kind of like an old joke. I understand there are some efforts to try to have a structured outreach to younger people and say, here are some things you could study perhaps to ready yourself for a career in this industry. I certainly applaud those efforts, but I have not personally been able to do much about it. I, you know, I will echo what Joey. That's interesting. I did not know that about your vision internal to JDR of the best operations people are going to understand the whole process within the business. I've usually been kind of oriented the other way of reaching out to people in other departments, particularly if you come across somebody who's a little newer to the industry and they start asking questions. I try to just make myself as available as possible to walk them through, hey, this is the meaning behind what you're doing. This is how it fits into the larger picture. This is why it's important. These are things that could trip you up. This is what this phrase means. This is something your customer might care about, whether that's a salesperson. I try to encourage my teams to understand the needs of the accounting organization, because so often what we're doing is so material to their ability to report on results, and to just, I think Joey's dead on right about make sure your operations people understand the whole process, because I always think about how sitting in the ops chair, you are kind of at the meeting point of so many different parts of the business, and you have the privilege of seeing all these things going on and getting kind of a holistic view of how the business is operating. To me, that's very fun. Like I said before, I'm a nosy person. I want to know. So it's been a fun spot for me to be in within an equipment leasing company. But gosh, I don't know how to get those younger people. I read these articles about how there aren't any coming in. If there's anybody younger listening to this somehow, stick with it. It's a great industry. The people are cool. You're doing a positive thing. We have positive social utility. We're helping the economy grow. It's just it's a good thing to be involved in.
I know at Solify we believe very strongly in the idea that behind every lease, behind every loan, behind every tranche of working capital is somebody's vision, aspiration, dream, growth goal, continued operation or entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, it's really at the heart of our customer's customer, and everything that JDR does, that Broadleaf does, that Solify does, is it, like I think you said it very well, David, it sits at the nexus of all of these areas of business coming together to achieve something really, really big, which has global economic impacts, but it also has individual personal impacts at that, at the other end of that spectrum. And that's a really exciting place to be. It takes a little time to stop and pause and think about it, but it's at the heartstrings of everything that is going on there.
Yeah, it's very cool. You never wake up and wonder, is there any point to what I'm doing? That has never bothered me. So I'm sure somebody's got a job where they're like, what's the point? Never ever am I worrying about that. So.
Well, as we start to wrap up here, David, what do you have planned next? Give us a little look into that next year, that crystal ball, if you will.
Sure.
Anything that you can share?
Sure. Well, I mean, really, because of the choices that we made about who to work with, we find ourselves in the fortunate position that as we close out the first year of having a solid foundation of our technology. Our back end is solid. We have no worries about the validity of our reporting on our results. Everything is smooth, and we don't have nervousness around that. Like we have a good solid base. So this allows us now to begin to work on some projects that are related to having greater insight into what's going on in our business. So obviously a lot of reporting needs, a lot of how are we going to get data from different parts of the business and get it in a way that is meaningful to the audiences, both the customers and internally. And then as we grow and we, we have customers asking for certain information and they want it the way they want it, how do we not get caught in the trap of we're producing stuff too manually? So how do we implement some tools now early on in our journey that are going to give us the flexibility to handle the myriad information requests that are sure to arise? So we're really focused on that. And like I said before, we're very big on stepping backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards. There's a thing that I've heard in various sports that I always think about, that is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so you have to be patient and methodical at the beginning. And then when you've got things moving the right way, you can go very, very fast. But it's that foundational stuff. So that sort of echoes, we've spent this first year on foundational stuff, and now we'll be able to accelerate. But if we didn't do this stuff right in the first place, we'd be in no position to do anything new. We'd be putting Band-Aids on. And, I think we're at every year of a startup is exciting, sort of intrinsically, but we're at a particularly kind of exciting phase for me where we're adding on to the foundation. Hope that's not too vague.
No, that's terrific. Joey and Jennifer, how about for you all? What's the next year hold for JDR?
Well, we're always looking at expanding service lines, so maybe some new potential revenue streams that are out there, but any other operational type services that we can provide. There's other things that we currently don't provide that would be considered back end, and we're always looking to see if there's something we can add to our lineup. So that's always ongoing. So.
Sure. And if somebody wants to get in touch with you or to come over and just learn a little bit more about JDR, Joey, Jennifer, where do they go to find that out? What's your URL?
Sure, it's jdrsolutions.com. Jennifer and I are both listed out there. Give us a ring, shoot us an email. We also have a contact us page out there, so give us a ring. And
Dave, for Broadleaf, if someone's out there like, hey, these folks sound like they know what they're doing. They've got their stuff in a group. So what's the way to get in touch with Broadleaf?
I mean, we have broadleaffinancial.com and of course LinkedIn. Hit me up on LinkedIn if you have any questions, want to reach out, get in touch, bat some ideas around. Happy to do that, and that's probably the easiest way to do it.
Oh, terrific. Well, Joey, Jennifer, and Dave, thank you all very, very much. This has been really a genuinely useful look at what real partnership in the real world looks like between the finance organization and outsourcing to a provider with expertise, but without losing control. And that is incredibly useful for organizations out there to build confidence, to build trust, and to help them build scale. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking some time out of your day today to join us. Thank you to JDR. Thank you to Broadleaf for sharing your story, sharing some of your concerns and your challenges and how you overcame them today. If you'd like to learn more about JDR services, please do look at that content and materials link on your screen to download their brochure, and there will be some additional details in the follow-up email from this webinar where you will be able to review the recording if you want to watch it again, or if you missed it the first time and you can watch it or you're watching it now on demand. Well, that's all the time we have today. On behalf of Solify, JDR, and Broadleaf, I'm Billy Kripe signing off. Thank you all so very, very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.